Hi and welcome to the last TFF World Cup show. And hello, Andrew, again.
Hello guys. Hello Rob.
Yeah, we've got to do Group H, and I think this will be the toughest one to call. So we've got,
Yeah.
well, we've got Japan, we've got Senegal, we've got Colombia, we've got Poland. And Andrew, explain why this is a difficult one to call.
Well, I've got to be honest, Rob. This is generally over the whole four teams. This is probably the most even group, relatively speaking. I'd say there are a lot of unknown quantities in the group. That's what makes it hard for me because you've got some standout players. You've got Lewandowski's for Poland. You've got Mane for Senegal. You've got Keisuke Honda for Japan. I still see as a quality player. I know he's 31, 32 now. But then there's a large part of those squads that don't have quite the depth of experience that their star players do. So how well they'll knit together is quite hard to predict. So I'm not looking forward to putting my neck on the line for predictions on this one, but that's part of the job. We've got to do it. So we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah, on paper, I like the look of Colombia's squad. I think they've got a nice balance throughout the team. They've got one or two players with star quality, so I would be saying Colombia would advance from that group.
Yeah, they've definitely got some. They've definitely got some electric players in there. For me, I think Juan Cuadrado is a brilliant little player. I loved him when he was at Chelsea, and I thought it was a shame he didn't get more out of his career in England. But when you've got him and you've got James Rodriguez, of course, that ridiculous goal he scored in the last World Cup. That was when I first became aware of Rodriguez, and Falcao became a bit of a laughing stock in England, but his quality has never been in doubt. It's that classic old cliche, form is temporary, class is permanent. Well, Falcao for me is the embodiment of that. He will finish chances off. If you give them to him, he'll put them in the back of the net. And actually, who I'm looking forward to seeing the most, Rob, is this Yerry Mina, the young fellow who joined Barcelona but didn't really. I think he was either injured or couldn't get him the side, but he's got a lot of potential. So you're right, definitely a lot of quality there.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of strikers go to England, and for whatever reason, it never quite works out for them. It didn't really happen for Shevchenko all those years ago, and even Diego Forlan going back a while. And there's lots and lots of others. So I don't think we'll hold that against. Who are we talking about?
I love the professionalism, Mr. Falcao.
Falcao,
himself.
that's it. Yeah, he's class.
It's
completely forgot what we were talking about there.
I mean, look, Rob. The thing is, people will level that at him, but you're absolutely right. He's, not everybody. And I'm not trying to say this because I believe English football is the benchmark, but purely because it's just an example of a league where some players just fit the culture and others don't.
Yeah.
So it's not about the quality, it's just the difference.
Yeah, and it works both ways. We've seen, obviously, British players struggle abroad, and we see a few foreign lads come here and their quality. But, to be honest with you, Varane was world class, but he never really did an awful lot at Man United or Chelsea, did he?
It's a very good example. I mean, he's an absolute world-class player, no question about it. He didn't fit the system and the way the other players were around him. There's no slight on him at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, Colombia.
I mentioned Diego Forlan as well because he was a bit of a bit part player at United, but after that his career seemed to blossom, and he shone on the biggest stage, both with Atletico and in the World Cup. He was fantastic for Uruguay. So,
it's well, that's an interesting one, Forlan, as an example, because even though it took him, I think it was 26 games before he scored for Manchester United, he was permanently one of the crowd favourites. And I was in the crowd the day he scored that first goal for United, and it was when United had those weird home shirts that had an inner layer and an outer layer, and he just went absolutely berserk when he scored. And the entire, I can honestly say this in all my time of watching football, the sheer shared joy and pure emotion and a player scoring. I don't really remember anything quite like it because he was such a, he was quality. He was an honest pro, and he was well liked. So
it just didn't quite click with him. But you know what? He scored 2 goals at Anfield, and I think he's got a little bit of a cult following. So.
He made this. He came from Uruguay. He made the Scousers cry, Rob. Oh, lovely chap.
So, all right, moving on then. Are we both in agreement Columbia should get out of that group?
Well, you see, this is the operative word. Should, I would agree with. Will, like we said at the top of the show, so hard to call.
But we have to call it. So I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Columbia will get out of that group.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to, yes, I would agree.
Here's the thing, Andrew. If Columbia get out of that group, and it is an if, I think they're dangerous opponents to have in a knockout.
Well, they are not a traditional World Cup, not a traditionally successful World Cup side. They've never really made great impressions in the tournament. Performance-wise, yes, but getting far in the tournament. They're not often seen as dangerous, knockout opponents, which is, in an ironic way, for me, what does make them dangerous, because people don't expect it. They do have plenty of players in that side who can make something out of nothing, where, this is the beauty of the World Cup for me. It quite often doesn't actually come down to the XG, expected goals, statistics, tactics. It can often come down to moments of pure genius and inspiration, and that's what Colombia do have. So, I agree with you, it does make them dangerous in the knockouts.
All right then. Now, the other team I think should get out of but I really don't know on this one, is Poland. Purely because I think they have a world-class striker, one of the best in the world. If you're naming the best 5 or 6 strikers in the world, Lewandowski's in the discussion. So, they've also got a young lad at Sampdoria, and that's... I don't know a lot about Poland.
I think the pronunciation, I'm not so hot, to be honest.
Go on, you go for it.
I'm not even going to try, to be honest, with the pronunciations. But, if you think of... I'll tell you one play. Yeah, we'll go for Kaunaki. I apologise profusely to our legions of Polish supporters.
Yeah,
but
they will all be tuning in, so... I think one man in his dog's watching this.
Well, Rob, look, okay, Lewandowski, you're quite right to highlight him at the top because he is by far and away their standout player. He's the pin-up idol. He's the go-to guy for sponsorship in Poland. He's the golden boy of Polish football, and for a good reason.
Yeah.
But you look at their strikers, their fella Arkadiusz Milik. Remember at Napoli 2 seasons ago, he had a absolutely blistering season.
He had a serious
and then he had
injury,
quite a long-term injury, I think it was. He's only 24. Now, we don't know how... I've not watched Napoli this season. I don't know how much he's played for them fully, but it's one of those unknown quantities. Those are the players that scare me as opponents, because if they've been out injured and they've just come back, how dangerous are they? And Milik, will he play? Maybe he'll only come off the bench. And the fellow Anderlecht as well. I remember writing a Europa League preview earlier this season, and they played against 2 seasons ago. And that was when they still had some of their main players. So this Lucas Tedorczyk, the Anderlecht guy, will say, that's his name now. They got a fabulous forward.
You said Napoli. They've also got another left at Napoli, Zelensky, and there's a player I do know at Sampdoria, Calenti. So they're a couple of top picks.
Yeah. If you just a quick skim down the list of ages in their squad, they've got a few, mid to 20-year-olds.
Yeah. They seem to have a lot of experience in there as well.
Yeah, it looks like a decent match they've got. We both are based in Russia, and one player who I am familiar with is Rebus, who has just won the Russian Premier League with Lokomotiv Moscow. He had seasons ago scored about 9 or 10 goals. Now in the Russian league, that's a phenomenal return in only 30 games, especially when he's not a striker. So, Reeve has good set piece ability. He's a threat down the left wing. We might play left wing back. He might play left wing. Versatile. He's got experience. So yeah. I just having a glance at the squad list, I know this might be a bit of an odd person to pick out, but Kamil Grosicki, I was very, very impressed with him when he first moved over to England.
Yeah.
Now
Never
he's not playing for a fashionable side, of course not. But he was a simple, but he did the right things well. He beat his man. He crosses in. His delivery was good. So yeah, I think you're picking them out as I'm assuming you're going to say your second team in the group, or at least top two.
Yeah, just because I don't know enough about Senegal. Who are we? Senegal for me have got a standout player who I think a really good season, although he's probably been put in the shade by a couple of players. But
yeah.
And then going through the names, they've got a lot of solid performers. How many? I don't know how many players are in the Premier League, but there's a few solid players there. Keita Balde, there's another one.
Yeah, no, yeah. They've got players who are playing in not all the absolute top teams in Europe, but the top leagues in Europe.
Yeah.
The very, very lazy, in my view, racist stereotype of African players being athletic but not skillful. It's just utter rubbish nowadays. Just look at the quality of these teams. We're looking at teams. Okay, the leagues. They're all in English, the French, the Italian, a couple in the German leagues. And if that's not good enough, then I don't know what is. That is the absolute best competition to be playing against.
Yeah.
So, yeah, another. But this is why we said, isn't it? How difficult it is.
Yeah.
It's a quick experience. It's not like they're all unknown. And English players, English fans, will be familiar with a lot of them. So. Perhaps.
Yeah, Senegal play Poland June the 19th in the opener in that group. I think that's a key game. That one. I'm gonna be safe and say score draw.
Well, it's funny when we're going on to the predictions. Just one little thing I wouldn't mind. Without being too much of a plug, but I'm running a predictions league over Russian Football News, and I had to put down predictions today, and it was so hard to call. That game, you're right, is going to be key, no question, because once you've got arguably Japan are the weakest side in the group. Now we'll come to them in a moment. Yeah. But you should never take anything for granted, but they will be thinking in the back of their head at least. Look, Japan is a game we're looking for. If we can get points in the game, then we're all set. So yeah, I agree with you. Score draw. I actually went for 1-1.
Yeah,
Poland, Senegal.
I would go along with 1-1. I think Colombia will open up with a comfortable 2-goal over Japan. Then we go into the second fixtures, and I think Colombia will be handily set for a place. I think already predicting Colombia to go through and that they play Japan first game, I think it's set up for Colombia. So I think Senegal, Poland, it's a kind of don't lose game.
Yeah, precisely that, exactly. Colombia have got I always think with World Cup groups like this, if you play your weakest team first, then it is... Well, some people might think differently. I would rather that. It's always that classic, get the points on the board. In cricket terms, you want runs on the board. You want to put a total up. It's always easier to defend than chase. So Colombia will be, they will have the runs on the board. You assume. Assumption, the mother of all ups. Trying to think of the least offensive word to use for that. But
now, I say Poland to go through. I don't say it with any confidence. Poland v Senegal, I don't think there's a lot in it, to be honest. And maybe it will be a case of who of the star talisman turn up. And often, you really, that's when you need your big guys to really show up, because the rest of the squad, there isn't a lot in it.
Yeah, I don't know what the positivity is around in local media with Poland but every time I follow my Polish friends and contacts and the domestic scene, it is even more depressing than talking about Russian football. They just have no faith at all in the quality of the domestic league. But again, we come back to where the players are playing, and the Polish players, well, like most of the squads actually nowadays, are playing in the top 5 leagues anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think there's a single Polish player from. Oh, no, sorry, I take that back. So actually, there's 4. There's 4 of them, but only 4 in the whole squad playing Poland. So
yeah. Let's give Japan a little mention. We don't think they're going to go through, but they've qualified. They deserve a bit of respect. They've produced players over the years. Being completely honest with you, I don't know anything about this.
Well, Rob, there are, once you look slightly deeper into the background of some of the players, like a lot of squad, there is a lot more experience than you think. I still think they are the weakest side, but they do have Nagatomo at Inter. They've got Yoshida at Southampton, who I actually think is one
player, haven't they? I like him.
Yeah, Okazaki, he will run and run and run, and he will never give defences a moment to rest. Actually, just looking at the stats, I didn't realise how many he'd scored, but 50 international goals is no mean feat. I mean, the Asian qualifiers, they're historically one of the strongest teams in Asia and have been for some time. And they do have experience of qualifying for World Cups. So it's not, there is a bit of expectation on them, but they do rise to it. And if you've got somebody who's willing to run and has the athleticism of Okazaki, that is going to take a weight off the weight of burden off the other players.
Yeah.
So
we mustn't forget.
They won't go alone.
What about the former United player who's back at Dortmund? Is it Kagawa?
Oh, Shinji Kagawa. He was. That really did actually upset me a lot. How we just couldn't get the best out of him, because he's so intelligent with the way he runs, his body position, his awareness of other players. He perhaps is a little bit on the lightweight side to run in the sense that English sides are demanded, not in the old school 1960s kick and rush sort of running, but the pace of the game non-stop, and perhaps he didn't quite have the fitness for it. But the quality, undoubtedly, he does. And now he's back at Dortmund, so he's going to be happier. He's going to be more positive. So, an interesting thing, actually, is quite how many of the Japanese squad play in Germany, in the Bundesliga. Most of their midfield, Okazaki, I believe, came from Germany as well. So, again, it's not like they're just playing against rubbish players week in, week out. They're playing against the best.
Andrew, you mentioned about the Polish supporters. I read, it was translated, of course, because I'm not fluent in Russian by any means, but there was a headline in one of the Russian papers the other day that they've got zero faith in their team's hopes for this World Cup, and in fact they were ranked the lowest team. They haven't won a game this year, so expectations are very low for the Russian national side.
Well, yeah, I mean we see a lot of parallels with Russia themselves. I mean, Russian fans for years and years have just lost faith altogether. They don't even care that much about the national team. I'm generalising here. I'm talking about relative to how deep the following is in a lot of other countries. So Poland, I get the impression that they're not overly confident, but oh God, it is generally so hard to call. I think this group is going to be the most entertaining for neutrals, though, simply because of the amount of uncertainty, potential and uncertainty about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Andrew, you're based in Tyumen in Siberia. I'm based in Moscow, so we can both give anybody watching some idea, I suppose, of what it's like here. But in Moscow, for a start, the hotel prices are doubling in the next few days. I've noticed, obviously, it's a lot busier. There's advertisements. There's all sorts of things around the city now. In Gorky Park, one of the biggest parks, there's a big fan zone, and it was buzzing yesterday. Really good atmosphere, and there generally seems to be a lot of excitement building up now. And what about yourself over there? What's it like in Tumin?
Well, I mean, it's not been remotely what I probably hoped it would be, but I kind of expected it to be lower key than what it would have to be in most countries. But long story short, in Tumen specifically, football is not really a sport that is followed with great passion. The local side gets about 1,500 to games in a city of 800,000. Winter sports are more popular. Even mini football. Interestingly, the local mini football club, who's owned by the same president as the local 11-a-side team, are actually one of the best mini football teams in Russia, and Russia are one of the best countries in the world at futsal. I actually read a really, really interesting little stat yesterday, Rob, that Russia have been crowned champions in, I think, either European champions, possibly also world champions, but certainly European champions, in beach football, in homeless football, in... there were about 3 or 4 different variations of World Cups that they won, but not the real one, not the main one. So, the interest in the World Cup it's been relatively lethargic over here. I mean, I would like to paint the picture, it's a football mad city, but the truth is it's not.
I'm just wondering if it's... I think obviously how vast Russia is as a country plays a part. I mean, Tumin is the nearest World Cup ground being used is Ekaterinburg, right? Which is 5 hours away. And then that kind of might play a part in that. The other thing is as well, with the low expectations of the national team, I was just thinking if Russia could maybe win their opening game or get a win, that could really light the whole place up.
I 100% agree with that, Rob. You're right. It's something my dad has always said about tournaments of any sport, really. But he's always said he always supports the host country because it makes such a difference to the atmosphere of the whole tournament. They don't have to win it, but just get a bit of passion behind it. Get them out of the group stage at least.
I remember the same thing was said about Mexico when they've hosted it before, and South Korea is the obvious one. It does make a difference because obviously we're both living here as well, so we can see it and feel it. Now, anyone watching back home, an awful lot of negativity about Russia. So I just got to say this: I walk around Moscow with my laptop in my hand. Now, I wouldn't do that in London. I feel very, very safe in Moscow. Very comfortable. It's a really... Well, where I am in Moscow it's a very clean city. I've noticed security is quite tight, but it's a very open city. It's very friendly. People are very friendly. More and more people speak English than ever before. I think there's the demographics in Russia are changing and attitudes are changing, and I think Russia is moving and progressively. A lot of people read and see things on the news back home the same way there's a lot of propaganda at this side, but honestly, I found Russian people to be very warm and hospitable, but you wouldn't get that on perhaps Western news coverage. But that's genuinely the truth.
Yeah, it just doesn't make us as juicy a headline, does it? No, unfortunately, no. But you make a very good point. It's I think what people will be surprised at is not just the fact that the Russians are not the same as Vladimir Putin and foreign policy of the Kremlin.
Exactly.
But it's not just that they'll be friendly, but it's that they generally are curious. That's what I find that stands out the most. They're curious of foreigners and what foreigners think of them. And that's I can't wait to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this World Cup's going to go well, and I think it will. I know there was a lot of criticism when it was awarded 8 years ago, same as Qatar. I've got reservations on that World Cup for sure, but Russia's a powerhouse, and I think hopefully it will put the country in a better light. I hope for Russia's sake things go well, and we shall see. I remember you said a while ago you don't foresee any trouble, any problems, not in the city anyway, and I agree with that because the security's too good and too tight.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned it there, Rob, that you noticed the security is tight, and I think pretty much everybody would strike that balance if that was the deal to be made. Slightly over the top security, but safety. I just think it's a no-brainer, and
It's
I
not
think
intimidating. I don't feel intimidated, but I'm aware of their presence now. It's built up. I've been coming to the city for every weekend now for the last couple of months, and I've noticed a gradual increase. But as I say, I feel very safe here.
Yeah, I mean, I will, I won't say everything is hunky dory. I did do some freelance work a few months ago, photographing different host cities, and in Saransk, for example, Saransk is the smallest host city. There's only 350,000 people who live there, and there was a huge police presence, not just near the stadium, and this was just for a regular league match to test out the new stadium, but all around the centre. And my job was just to take pictures of interesting places, fairly harmless stuff, and police did approach me a few times and say, "Can we see your passport and your papers?" And I knew in my head, I know that this is just simply they're doing their job. They're not suspicious. But it did make me feel a bit uneasy because I'm not used to it.
I think if there is going to be any trouble, Andrew, I would make a guess that it wouldn't be in Moscow, but maybe one of the other stadiums.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sort of people who are interested or remotely capable of causing trouble, they're also not stupid. They know that it is just not even worth their bother trying to create trouble anywhere, yet alone in the cities. So a lot of the hooligan gangs and supporter groups have been. I had it on good authority. They've been, let's just say, visited rather forcefully by the FSB and said, "Look, listen. You even try and raise your head anywhere near this place, and you won't see your family for a fair bit of time." Now that sounds fairly mafia stuff, but they're basically just saying, "Look, you're going to go to jail if you try anything." They're not stupid. They know it's not worth a while. So people coming, they can just simply enjoy trying to discover a completely new country and just take it on that level.
Right. Well, I for one am very excited. I will be. Obviously, I'll work in the day, but I will watch all the games after 4 o'clock, all the afternoon games and evening games I'll be able to watch. What do you know? I've forgotten what time the opener is. I presume it's in the evening.
It's at 6 o'clock Moscow time kickoff, so 4 o'clock for our UK watchers. That's the kickoff, but so the opening ceremony will start at about, say, 4 o'clock Moscow time, I think, something like that.
Nip out of work, get down to the local sort of restaurant sports bar where I'll watch it, and I can't wait. Tickets though, you can't get them, can you? It's very difficult now.
Well, the only place at all, I did see one person on Twitter saying, "I can't go to the game anymore. Does anybody want to buy it off me?" Basically, I wouldn't even consider the option. I may well try and follow it up myself. England in Volgograd on the 18th of June against Tunisia. I will be in the city, but it's just I don't think you've got to get the fan ID processed, and I don't think it's really at this point. It's look, you either have your ticket or you don't.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, Andrew. Well, look, let's play it by ear. We might be able to do some knockout ones nearer the time, but we've covered all the groups. Let's just reiterate then. Who's your favourite to win this whole thing?
Well, I've set my stall out quite early on this one, and I'm going to stick with it. My tip to win is France. I'm going to go for France because, I mean, the history of having the mental strength to win a whole tournament is not always been there, but they just seem to get better and better. The youngsters coming through are even more terrifying than the last generation. They could have half their side injured and still have a world-beating side. And I know that's true of a few other countries, but I just got this gut feeling about France. I think they might win it this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're my tip as well. So we're both going for the same team, which is what made me laugh. But obviously, Germany have got an amazing squad and most people's favourites. Brazil look very tasty, and you can't rule Spain out. But I have to agree at France's squad, and I think these things go in cycles. And I think the next few years he's going to go to France. Looking at the way their team is developing, I think it's their turn again. Never seems to be England's
Yeah.
team, but no.
I mean, it's obviously always a big mistake to read too much into warm-up friendlies, but I mean, Germany have had a dreadful run of results in the friendlies. Now, it's so silly to even contemplate that as a factor, and I don't really. But is it? I don't know if it's something that
I don't know.
slightly starts
How
the
many
minds.
times, Andrew?
You know?
How many times have we seen Germany in a tournament? They've not even played particularly well, but they'll still get to the final. They'll still pull it out of the bag. Even in
You
2002.
know,
Do you remember we beat them 5-1? And we were on cloud nine. Well, they still got to the final the next year. And that was probably the worst team they've had in my lifetime.
well, Rob, that was the generation when Germany said, right, now we are going to revolutionise how we build our. That was the tournament that
Yeah.
sparked it all.
But they still got to the final. And that's them at their worst.
Yeah, wow, exactly. Yeah, it's not going to be a shock if Germany win. Obviously, stating the clearest obvious, but yep, tip for me, France. I just can't look past them.
This World Cup, no Holland, no Italy. That's a bit strange, isn't it?
I mean, I've not trawled through the records, but I can't remember the last time that neither of those two nations made it through. So
you would be predicting those two as like quarter semi-finalists most years. So that's they're two historical nations in World Cup football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you talk about cycles, and this is for the Netherlands. They've struggled in recent years, despite having a solid history of teams qualifying for Europa League, a lot of youth production as always, but they have struggled. They have struggled.
It's
so
interesting, Andrew,
this is what countries need.
That in Holland's probably the last few years, the last 3 or 4 years, they've been in a sharp decline. Their neighbours Belgium have risen to be one of the best teams in the world. It's interesting how it goes like this.
It's the key for me in all of it, Rob, is just how countries go about it. You know, how do you try and establish your team? Is it for the long term or is it the short term? And this is why international football, why the World Cup is so great, because it is a genuine marker of long-term planning always wins out.
Yeah.
You can get the most expensively paid manager to come in, whatever the highest, all the facilities you like. If you don't drive the right mentality from, and I mean the very, very youngest age, with a clear path of, if you dedicate yourself to our training program, this is your career path. This is how we are going to make you into a professional footballer. If you don't give them that sort of backing, and that's a psychological thing, in a way that doesn't even cost money. But if you don't get that philosophy right, long term, you are going to fail.
Yeah,
you get it right.
I agree, and I think we said this before, but honestly, even if England come bottom of the group, which wouldn't be great, I would keep Southgate. I really would. If we don't, I know that would be awful if we don't qualify. But you know what? We've been awful for a while, and we keep chopping and changing. And I like what Southgate has done with the under-21s. I think he's got a good relationship with his players. I think he handles the media well. I say let's give this guy, let's give him 4 or 5 years without the pressure, and let's see what can happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Rob. I really do. What is the point in bringing someone else in who's then it's a whole new, it may be related, but it is a whole new character. And the thing about international management is, for me, the key above anything else is how you can handle the psychological side, the personal side with your players. I think you make a good point about Southgate, how he dealt with Sterling's nonsense in the media. I think, honestly, he's handled it perfectly.
Yeah.
He's taken the whole heat out of the situation. Yeah. He's not sort of sided against the media, which is also very important.
That's right.
He's not allowed the negativity to come in too much, but he's not condemned them either. And I think he's actually dealt with it very well. And that
a blinder. He's a clever guy. He's always been an articulate player. He was a good player. I like the way he played. He was quite a cultured, classy centre back, and a sort of a measured, balanced kind of guy. And I think sometimes in the past we've had a lot of sort of bluster and passion, which is okay, but I think a more calm, measured approach seems to work with the group of players we have now, and they all a lot of them seem to respond to him from the younger England squad. So yeah, I would say, look, regardless of what we do, let's keep him. And I actually think it plays into our advantage. For the first time ever, there seems to be a real... nobody's getting carried away with England for once. We know what we are. We're bang average, and you know.
Yeah, it's this is that's the beauty of any sport, but football I think is particularly, why it's football in particular I don't know, but I find it particularly relevant. You have to go through cycles to realise quite how deeply the change needs to be, and this is a good type place to be for England because the pressure is off. And in a weird way, it might release them a little bit more if there's less pressure.
Andrew, I didn't see the game in its entirety. I saw the highlights for Costa Rica. Rashford's goal was stunning. We know that he can do that when he wants. We do have Dele Alli. We do have Harry Kane. We do have Raheem Sterling. We do have some talented players. Yeah, Jesse Lingard. I still think, for me, the defence worries me against the very best. I can see us at least getting to the second round, possibly quarters at max. But if we got to the quarterfinals, is that a decent tournament for England?
Yeah, I'd say absolutely, because the second round you can still get a fortunate draw, shall we say?
Yeah.
Quarterfinals, that's a testing stage, and it's being on that stage, not necessarily how far they get through, but being on the stage in the first place is what will benefit the team as a whole, but particularly the younger players. So I'd say quarterfinals will be a very satisfactory tournament, very good. I'll be happy.
Every tournament, you hope that you have a player that sort of comes a little bit from nowhere, like a Gazza in 1990, or is Rashford that man this year? Do you think Rashford could be our ace up our sleeve?
I think he really is a potential match winner, and I have this theory, Rob, that he might well be that player for England simply because of the fairly claustrophobic negative pressure he's been feeling through his club career this season. When he started in Manchester United's first team at the age of 18, he was fearless, and he still is to an extent. I just think those sort of players, I don't think Rashford has a troublemaking character, but even if he did, I would say such as his ability and confidence, you should accommodate at least a level of that.
Why,
you can't
Andrew, why has Rashford got this criticism? Because...
Well, Rob, honestly, I really genuinely have tried to be as objective as possible, and I cannot work it out. I just think, I have an axe to grind about Mourinho. I really feel like...
Do you think he's too hard on the younger players?
I think he tries to be too hard. I think that's his problem. I think he tries to set his stall out as the disciplinarian, as, well, I'm the one who's won all these titles, so you will listen to how I do it or not. But I don't see what problem Rashford's caused him in the first place.
No, I look at Rashford and I think nearly every club in Europe would gladly take him. Not maybe in the first 11, but would, he's an outstanding talent. And yeah.
No, Rob, I agree. It's the natural talent that he has.
Yeah.
It's he really is the complete package as a forward. He's physical. He's got ball skills. He's got incredible pace. He's got confidence. He's got finishing.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want from a forward, really.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, you hit the nail on the head there, because what you've described is what we saw a few years ago, like this fit. Like, you remember Rooney when he burst on the scene, Michael Owen when he burst on the scene. And almost as players get 2 or 3 years in, it's sometimes almost coaches can coach that out of them a little bit, because they're trying to perfect him in other ways, and you can lose a little bit from a player. And I'll still want players to play with that. It's happened with Dele Alli this year. Dele Alli's had a decent season, but he hasn't had the amazing season of the previous 2 years. And it seems to me, as soon as we have a young player that shows hope, we build them up and then we knock them down. And, I think most countries would gladly take Dele Alli, would gladly take Marcus Rashford. So perhaps we need to go a bit easier on our players at times. I don't know.
No, loosely I agree. The concept of actually how you support the players, not just how strongly, but how you support them is just as important.
Yeah.
The youth, the quality of English youth at the moment is the best in the world. And I'm not saying that just because I'm trying to be patriotic. Look at the success England's youth teams have had. They won the Under-17 World Cup in India. They won the Under-20 World Cup. They won, I think, the Under-21s European Championships. They've got more titles, I believe, than most other countries have had at one time. So the young players are coming through, and they have been coming through. This is what people sometimes tend to forget. They think, oh, well, the English team is rubbish. Well, the players are not rubbish. The quality has always been there. It's just there's a lack of a clear philosophy, and a lot of them not being given the right opportunities, the right backing. Sometimes, Rob, it's just pure luck, though. Sometimes it's, does the perfect coach for the perfect player, do they coincide? And when that happens, it is a beautiful thing. And if that can happen for the likes of Rashford and Lingard and Dele Alli, even Harry Kane, he seems like an experienced player, but he's still not that old.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
24 years old.
No, I look at Mourinho, and I mean, you've been quite critical of him. Now, listen, this guy's a serial winner. He's a world-class coach, and he's had an amazing managerial career. I don't think he's great for young players coming through. And then if we take Gareth Southgate, I don't think Gareth Southgate quite would cut it at the top in club level. But sometimes you've got managers that just suit different jobs, and I think Southgate is suited to international football. I actually think Zidane would suit international football better than club football.
I'd go along with that.
And Mourinho, for all the things he is good at, which we know and why top clubs employ him, producing young players and the rest of it isn't really his sort of trait, is it? You only have to look at some of the players Chelsea let go under his tenure.
It's when it started, when Mourinho arrived, I cannot believe how much I've made a misjudgment on this one. What you said, he's a winner. He may be dour in a personality. I can live with that, no problem. Yeah. If the discipline and the clear philosophy is there, then I thought this is exactly what we need, and that's what I thought. And I cannot believe how wrong I was, because I missed out that it's not about his tactical acumen, which cannot be questioned. He's a fantastic tactician. He knows how he wants to coach, but if it doesn't fit the players and the team, then it can end up like this. It can be a disaster. So,
part of the problem as well, Manchester United have always, historically, done so much for England, which has not always been acknowledged. You only can go through any period, and Manchester United have always provided either a core or some key players for England. And I look at what's happened to Luke Shaw at left back. You could argue actually in either way there. Maybe it's the players' problem, but I suppose Jesse Lingard would contradict what I'm saying. He's actually come through very well under Mourinho.
He's people forget. He's 25, 26 now. He only really came through when he was already 23, 24. Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah. He is a very odd exception to the rule, because he stuck at it. But, for me, what that says absolute volumes for Jesse Lingard's mental strength. Because if you get to the age of 22 and you're not in the first team, then most people would say, look, you're not good enough. And he would have drifted off to a lower league
similar
club.
From Harry Kane, Andrew. Kane was 21 when he burst on the scene. He's only been on the scene 3 years. He was loaned out to 6-7 clubs. He ended up on the bench at Leicester and Norwich. And I think
Millwall he was at, I think, on loan, was he?
Yeah.
Millwall?
Yeah, Millwall, yeah. I think Harry Kane's got amazing mental strength.
I definitely agree with you now, Rob. I'll be perfectly honest, I've not always been Harry Kane's biggest fan. His record is fantastic, and as a person and a character, the whole thing about trying to claim goals for himself, yes, people laughed at him, and I admit I did poke a bit of fun at him myself, but mental strength, you are absolutely spot on about that. Whatever you think of his character, the mental strength that lad has got, and that is why Southgate's picked him as captain, and I think actually a very good choice.
There isn't too many leaders there, Andrew, to be honest. I don't see too many leaders in that. That for me, I don't see us getting it further than the quarterfinals, and that would be at best. And one of the reasons is our defence, but the other reason is I don't see a lot of leaders or strong characters when things are going wrong. If we go a goal down, who are they going to turn to? Who's going to rally us? I don't see anyone. You know, in past we had so many big characters and personalities. I'm not sure
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have that anymore.
No, we certainly don't have them of the caliber that just flooded the team. You know, the 2002 World Cup, I remember being genuinely really positive about the team, and you felt like they were players you could turn to.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was the Terrys or the Ferdinands, or I mean, even Owen Hargreaves at the time, he was on the best form of his career at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and
What we would do for an Owen Hargreaves now.
you know, I remember how he was ridiculed for long periods of his career.
It's what we
But
do.
he
It's
was
what we
pretty
do.
wrong.
Look at Raheem
Yeah.
Sterling's probably one of our best players, but he's kind of hated by a lot of clubs.
That's just ludicrous, utterly ludicrous. I mean, I can't get my head around it.
Yeah. So anyway, come on England. Although I've been critical of them for a long time, as soon as it kicks off, obviously I'll be cheering England, and always want them to do well. I've got to be honest, Andrew. In the last few years, my club team is more important than my international team, and I find friendlies absolutely boring. But when it comes to the actual tournament, nothing's better for me. I love a tournament. I watched the Euros with you 2 years ago, and I am looking forward to this World Cup now, and being in Russia as well. It adds an extra thing.
It's going to be special. We're lucky. We're the lucky ones being here on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see. Let's see if we're right. Let's see if we're wrong. And
Yeah.
maybe we'll do some knockout ones. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, Andrew.